Alright, let's continue this tier list, shall we? If you haven't watched the previous tier list video, you can go and watch that first, if you want to of course, link in the description. It's not a necessity. In the previous video I simply went over the games I played in the first half of the year, and now I'm going to continue that list with the games I played in the second half. With the first one being Armored Core 6. Another banger by From Software. The gameplay is incredibly fluid and fun. The mechs control incredibly well, and the boss fights are fun and well designed. They all felt fair to me. You just have to put in some effort in customizing a nice mech and mastering the mechanics. Speaking about customization, it's really deep with lots of different builds you can try, meaning you never really run into a wall. If you can't seem to beat a boss, just try a different build. But with all the possible builds comes a typical FromSoft game problems. A few builds in this game are ridiculously overpowered, while some other builds are almost impossible to beat the game with. For the story, I didn't think it was anything special. A lot of it was just read to you. But what I did really enjoy about the narrative is the characters. They each have distinct personalities and are all really well written. The fact you can become so attached to these characters despite never actually seeing their face is incredible. You only ever hear them over comms or fight them. Insane how well designed they are. The art direction is really good, typical From Software quality. The world of Rubicon is grand, diverse and imaginative. The game is more linear and old school in design. Rubicon is not an open explorable world. The game essentially just features stages to play through. But I can appreciate this a lot actually. Not everything has to be an open world. Music, it's not as memorable as the other FromSoft games, but it's not bad. There are some really good soundtracks in this game for sure. Considering all these things, I'll put the game in the high A tier, just behind Final Fantasy 16, which I enjoyed a bit more as an action game. But I'm a huge Final Fantasy nerd after all. What's funny to think about is how this is actually my least favorite From Software game, and it is still ranked so high regardless. Says a lot about From Software as a studio. It's an amazing game, but I just prefer the high fantasy and horror setting over a sci-fi one. Alright, the following game I played is Starfield. The game got shit on a lot by the average gamer, but I actually quite enjoyed it for what it was. I just love the freedom you get inside of a Bethesda game. There is no RPG out there like it. You can go anywhere you want, be anyone you want. There aren't really any rules you must follow as a player. The best time I had in Starfield was definitely doing the faction quests. They are in my opinion as great as in all the other Bethesda RPGs. You learn a lot about the world by doing them. They're fun, you go to many different places, meet many different people, and you can choose how to interact with it all just the way you want. But that's the positives. The game also has a lot of negatives, ones that I acknowledge as well. The main story is just plain awful. It's clear all the work went into the faction quests, because it really was terrible. The companion characters might be some of the most bland and boring companions in any RPG I've ever played. They are so boring in the way they are designed. They all legit think and act in the exact same way. You do something that is even a little unethical while doing the different quests, and they will all scold you the exact same way. No one will side with you. The exploration beyond the important planets and cities is extremely boring. Traveling between planets is essentially just constantly fast traveling. I pick one tightly designed and fully explorable world like the one in Fallout or the Elder Scrolls any day over a bloated galaxy with all boring planets. Quality over quantity, Bethesda. Never forget that. So to summarize, while I had a lot of fun doing all the different quests and can appreciate the openness of a Bethesda RPG, I can't rate this game any higher than B tier. There were way too many questionable decisions made. But in the end, I did have fun, so I'll put it in the high B tier. The next game I played is Blasphemous 2. Since I love Metroidvanias, once in a while I get the urge to play one, and I'm glad I chose this one this time around. The platforming and combat in this game is very fluid and fun. The dark, Christianity-inspired art aesthetic is also super unique and visually pleasing. The world map was well designed, everything is connected very well, and there never was a point I found the backtracking to be annoying. The game is well paced, with the gradual unlocking of new abilities, and there's a lot of variety in the areas you visit. The boss fights are also for the most part really fun and fair. Attacks are readable, and there is not much luck involved in overcoming the fights. I don't remember ever feeling cheated. I do have a few complaints. The first one being the lack of optional areas. The journey is pretty set from start to finish. There is not much freedom in approach you can take. There are a few missable things in the game, but it's very limited. There were also lots of audio issues I had while playing the game. Music that doesn't start playing, or certain audios that glitch out. These issues happened all throughout my playthrough. The game is no Hollow Knight, but it's a great game nonetheless. One that I would recommend to everyone that is a fan of the genre. In the A tier it goes. Up next is Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 is a fun game to play. The traversal is extremely well done. The Spider-Man controls are just perfect. I don't think any studio could have done a better job than what Insomniac did. The city feels huge and alive, just like the first game, but expanded. The combat is an improved version of the first game. Same combat, but more combos and cool new abilities. I found the stealth parts the most boring parts in the original and in Miles Morales, so I'm glad they reduced the amount of stealth sections in this one. The story is, well, just another typical Spider-Man story, but it was fun. The characters are well designed and faithful to the comics. The voice acting was also really good. Honestly, everything about this game is good. Yeah, it's good. But with that said, the game does play it very safe. It doesn't do anything revolutionary. While playing it, I did have a blast, but once the game was over, that's it. Nothing to really think about, nothing that really made it stand out from all the other action games I played this year. It's just a well-made, fun sequel to Spider-Man PS4. That's really all I have to say about it. I put it in the A tier. But behind the other action games, Armored Core 6 and Final Fantasy 16. I just found them to be more interesting and memorable. Alright, next up is a very special game, Alan Wake 2. This one really stood out to me this year. The sheer amount of creativity on display here is astonishing, in almost all aspects of the game. The immersive horror narrative that leaves you guessing and in the dark, yet you're immersed and interested all the way through. It's the perfect horror narrative in my opinion. The studio's own Finnish culture being interwoven in it all is also a big plus. It makes the game stand out so much from the competition this year. The game also boasts a fun, exploration-focused gameplay experience with a fun combat system when the need arises. Alongside that, there's also the detective gameplay of Saga and the writing gameplay for Alan. And you can switch between these two characters' stories whenever you want, which makes for a stellar game pacing. There are surprises around every corner in this game. You can't feel comfortable during any point. The use of music in this game is also just amazing, with that Herald of Darkness section being my favorite gaming moment from the entire year. The game is a freaking masterpiece, an undeniable S tier. But I thought long and hard about whether I like this one or the Resident Evil 4 remake more. I did declare Resident Evil 4 as my game of the year in a previous video. Resident Evil 4's gameplay, level design and pacing is just unmatched this year. But Alan Wake 2 is just so special. It's so unique and different. Sure, the combat might not hit as hard as Resident Evil 4, but the atmosphere and narrative are just peak horror. It's so weird and so immersive. It keeps surprising you as a gamer all the way through. When you think you've seen it all, you actually haven't. I'm still thinking about the experience weeks after I finished it, and so recently I did come to the conclusion that Alan Wake is my game of the year after all. It's just art. It's ahead of Resident Evil 4 in the S tier it goes. Next up, the Super Mario RPG. The Squaresoft and Nintendo classic RPG remade. This was my first time experiencing this game and I love it. I can see why it's considered such a classic. The well-written goofy characters and the very charming and faithfully designed Mario world. It boasts a fun turn-based combat system that isn't really deep, but in return it's fast and easy to learn. Because of the simple gameplay, the game also decided to not overstay its welcome. It's actually pretty short, but I can appreciate that a lot. And because of that, there's also no grinding required at all during the entire game. And despite that length, the game is still filled with so many mini games and things to do. I definitely didn't get bored at all during any point in this playthrough. Yes, the game is very simple, but that is why it works so well and is loved by so many people in my opinion. It's very accessible. I can see why so many have such strong nostalgia over this game. I won't put this game over the more complex and deeper game experiences of the year, but it's still such a really fun experience. It's another A tier for me. I really only played great games this year, did I? And now for the final game of this list, Baldur's Gate 3. I do have to mention, I haven't finished this game yet. I'm currently still playing through it. I'm at the start of Act 3 with a playtime of 55 hours while I'm making this video. But the year is almost over. I'm definitely not finishing this huge game this month, but I think I'm far enough in to include it in this list anyway. My opinion might of course change after I finish the whole thing, but for now, it's fine. Where to start with this one? The game is massive. Let's start off with the positives. The characters within this game are amazing. This is how you make great companion characters. They're all unique and have distinct personalities. They all react differently to the events in the story, and I absolutely also love their visual design. They are so stylized. I definitely think this is a masterclass in character design. I can't see it getting any better than this. It's so good. Bethesda can learn a thing or two from Larian. The story is also really good for how open it is. The many different directions the story can go in based on your actions is mind-blowing. The script of this game must have been enormous, and the fact that it all still fits so well together and is so well written is a miracle. This must have been a huge undertaking. The game also houses my favorite open world experience of this year. Your hand is not held at all during any part of the game. So many huge events and important places are hidden in this game's world for you to find. But they're all fully optional, so a lot of players will miss on them. Elden Ring had this as well, and I love this design approach. The soundtrack of this game is also incredible, and the worlds you visit are so distinct and well designed. Also, the amounts of twists and turns this game's story has is insane. I've been playing for 50 hours and the foot never comes off the gas pedal. It just keeps throwing new plot elements at you constantly, new choices to be made. You're shaping the world at every turn by your actions. This really is a masterpiece RPG. So I think this game is absolutely a masterpiece and deserves the S tier. Yet, it's not my game of the year, because I do have issues with the game. Two primary ones. The first one being the combat system. I like the combat. It's fun to learn as someone who never played Dungeons and Dragons before, but it's just a bit too slow in my opinion. Some of these battles can last up to an hour, especially if you find yourself in a difficult situation. Also, if you're even a bit under-leveled or unprepared for something, you can get caught by surprise so quickly. There are also parts of this game that are just straight up impossible to deal with if you make a wrong choice, and you're then essentially forced to save scum. I read somewhere online that Baldur's Gate 3 can be considered a fun Dungeons and Dragons campaign, but one where the Dungeon Master is an absolute scumbag. And oh boy, I can definitely see why. I'm also not really that big of a fan of the amount of luck that is involved in the Dungeons and Dragons combat system. It's just a bit too random for me, but that's of course personal preference. And that brings me to the second part of the criticism. The save system. The amount of saving you have to do as a casual player in order to have a fun experience is insane. At any point in this game, you can get absolutely fucked over by a wrong choice and be thrown in a lion's den, unable to get out without loading a previous save. Especially at the start of the game, I had a lot of issues with this. Because a lot of the time, because I still didn't know what I was doing, I let one of my party members die, but I couldn't revive him or her yet, because I didn't have the gold for it yet. I'm also the type that constantly forgets to save, so countless times in my playthrough, I had to replay up to an hour of gameplay just because of dumb luck and me not saving. So to summarize this rant in 2 sentences, Baldur's Gate 3 is an undeniable masterpiece RPG, but it's just a bit too hardcore for my personal taste. In the S tier, behind Resident Evil, it goes for me. So with that, we're done. This is my official video game tier list for 2023. Did you agree with this tier list? Do you get where I'm coming from, or think it's absolute trash? What would your tier list look like? Leave a comment down below. I love to see what you think. If you enjoyed this video, also don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. This was the last video from me in 2023, but I do plan to be back early next year with a hopefully consistent weekly upload schedule. There are so many videos that I want to make and share with you all, so I hope you stay along for the ride. Thank you so much for watching, take care, and see you next year. Peace.